Did it work? Oh, we are live. It There we go. That was a strange thing that just happened. I apologize for everyone. I hope the link didn't break, and I probably broke the link. All right, so we should be wow, we should be live on Twitch and YouTube. Yeah. Uh anyway, sorry. This sorry, creatives community and kind folks out there. We've been having technical issues due to some changes in broadcasting, but this show is live on Twitch and YouTube and our own Discord server. So thank you for joining me on this future Friday. Thank you there, Gaster Two Soul. Yep. All right. So on this channel today, we are talking about, if you've seen the thumbnail, in the midst of battle. Yes, we are going to talk about, well, here is the rule of what we're going to talk about out there, you kind folks in the tabletop RPG creative community. I'll say, so we are not talking about a setting in which there is an eternal battle like Warhammer 40K with a battle that has been raging for a millennia. We are also, and this is the rule of today, we are not going to talk about a battle that happens to be taking place in some distant part of the galaxy, a la Star Wars. No, we are going to talk about a battle happening at the exact moment that the player characters are engaged in whatever mission or adventure that they are engaged in this scientific sci-fi tabletop RPG setting. Yeah, we're talking about railguns and blasters and disruptor beams flying overhead as the PCs go about their mission. And embracing the idea that maybe there's a battle going on that even the PCs have nothing to do with, but the thing is happening. So, yeah, yes, future wars, tank cities, the whole 9 yards. Yes, absolutely. All right, so for those who don't know, Future Friday on this channel, we do go live Monday through Friday, but Future Friday is dedicated to not just science fiction, but a special love of mine is transhumanism, posthumanism, especially when it comes to games and settings like the Expanse, Altered Carbon, Eclipse phase, and so on. So some references will be made to things like um, downloading the human brain, cortical stacks, resleeving, which is taking a cortical stack, which is like a thumb drive of the human neurological memory and inserting it into another biological or artificial body. We talk about hacking and nanotechnology and all of these kind of things. Yep. Yep. And like Gaster Two Soul says, sometimes war just begins because of another war. Um, so the reason why I'm being a bit hyper specific about this is because I think sometimes we can get used to doing things or involving ourselves in things in tabletop games, and I like us to challenge ourselves, and like Gaster too says, people can be that stupid sometimes, engaging in war. So. Um, the backdrop of having a battle, having a war happen, having some kind of like skirmish or whatever, and the PCs are involved in it, is because to ramp up the danger and to this is counter to some of the things I talk about where making the player characters become the protagonists of the adventure, making them the stars. Sometimes a story can be told very well when the player characters actually aren't the main focus, when they are just, I don't want to say innocent. Usually player characters are not innocent at all, but they could just be bystanders. So an example would be, um, um, only a few hours ago, 3 kinetic kill weapons have translated um, into the asteroid belt because a corporation is putting down an uprising in a mining asteroid, Alpha 37b, and the kinetic kill satellites are there, able to get there faster than because there are no human passengers on it, and the corporation has already sent a message that they're going to send space marines to quell the uprising, and the player characters might need to be there to retrieve the MacGuffin. Could be a political dissident, or retrieve a bit of information, or there are individuals there who have been captured and they need to be rescued, or and so on and so forth, right? And sure, the uprising may have nothing to do with the player characters, and the corporation probably could care less who the player characters are, but they may be there. And so when the player characters have to go into this asteroid, with an uprising, maybe there are riots going on, and internal security and the kinetic kill weapons are sending down, doing anything from disrupting communications to sending disruptor flares that cause like EMP effects, or they send down probes with drones in it that are themselves mechanical creatures, or they're bombarding the planet with energy or radiation, or again, just sending tungsten steel rods at hyper hyper velocity speeds that are destroying the asteroid bit by bit to force the uprising to become quelled in some manner, right? And this could be happening in and around the player characters, you know. Yeah, like Gaster Two Soul says, sometimes the PCs can just be on site, or can just be side characters to a bigger plot. Excuse me, with the actual main character doing stuff. Like an example would be most of your war stories happen this way, right? Like no one expects when you see a war story about our own historical wars, World War I, World War II, and a bunch of other wars, especially here in the States when we watch like wars about Vietnam. None of us expect the heroes to stop the war, right? There's something going on, but they are in the midst of it, and we're following their private story. So within their own scope, of course, the main characters themselves are engaged in their own story, but the primary protagonists, whether they are in a very private story, concerned with their own internal monologue or their own guilt, or they have a particular they want to exact particular revenge on someone, usually is very private, surrounded by something that is bigger. As a matter of fact, when we get to see Saving Private Ryan, we follow a number of soldiers, but we don't expect them to stop the war, but we do want to follow their exploits. Gaster Two Soul continues on and says, and remember, the keys to using MacGuffins, it can be a human, it can have a use. However, if it's a thing, the spies, army, evil demon king or corrupt politician they want, then it's a MacGuffin. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, my eyes did explode. I thought my microphone, sometimes when the audio goes out, my brain explodes, because then I have to restart the whole thing. It's not like I could just plug my microphone back in sometimes. Ugh. But yes, I'm sure Tesla Ranger over in the Discord could give us the master of tropes and tell us what a MacGuffin is, because don't be dismayed by even talking talking about what a MacGuffin is. There's nothing wrong with having a MacGuffin, but there is something to understand what a MacGuffin really is. Like for example, a MacGuffin is a term for a motivating element in a story that is used to drive the plot. It serves no further purpose. And there's nothing wrong with having something that moves the plot forward, even if that something doesn't have a further purpose to it. An example would be the example that is very common would be like a damsel in distress idea. And the damsel, like, I need to be saved, which I personally think is pretty boring, but we know that the damsel needs to be saved, but other than being saved, that MacGuffin doesn't further the plot unless we start to write things in. And we want to be careful about particular types of MacGuffins because the MacGuffin could be, if it's too specific, it's too easy for the MacGuffin to get lost, and then we lose the motivation for the plot itself. So, an important dignitary that needs to be rescued, who gets capped in the back of the head because one of the player characters is like, I don't like this person because they've got an attitude. I'm going to murder hobo them. Then all of a sudden, the motivation stops. It's like, well, I guess we're not saving anyone today, you know. Anyway, a MacGuffin, it serves no further purpose. It will pop up again later. It won't explain the ending. It won't do anything except possibly distract you while you try to figure out its significance. In some cases, it won't even be shown. There is a classic movie known as Ronin. Uh, there have been other movies that have done this, but in the classic spy movie Ronin, there is a MacGuffin that they never show you. There is also a Mission Impossible 4 uses a MacGuffin that they never show you. It's called the Rabbit's Foot, and they never tell you what the rabbit's foot is. In Ronin, they actually have a suitcase, and various individuals actually open up the suitcase, and there's a glowing light from the suitcase on the protagonist and antagonist's face when they open a suitcase and they close it, lock it back up. You never get to see what's inside of it. It's pretty. That's actually pretty slick storytelling thing, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Um, anyway, to go on with the description of the MacGuffin before we get back into the story, it is usually a mysterious package, artifact, super weapon that everyone in the story is chasing. To determine if a thing is a MacGuffin, is the nature of the item interchangeable, and is the nature of the item irrelevant to the plot? Um, yeah, a common MacGuffin story setup can be summarized as, quickly, we must find X before they do. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a MacGuffin. And the great thing about using MacGuffins, yeah, Pulp Fiction. Yes, Pulp Fiction has a MacGuffin in it. In Pulp Fiction, there is a, if I'm not mistaken, a suitcase or something that is opened with with the proverbial face alit. The main character's face is alit, and then they close it on up, and you never know what's inside of it. Yep. Gaster says a MacGuffin is a item that moves the plot and is mostly just shiny and nice looking. Something like a Maltese Falcon, a roll of film, a super weapon that does jack shit. Looking at you, Charlie's Angels 2019. Yep. Yep. It's the super weapon. It's the key that turns the thing on and off. It's as a matter of fact, um even the movie, a well designed movie, Captain America Winter Soldier. Captain America is running around with the key to the MacGuffin. It is the key to prevent the super weapon from activating. And so, yep, yep. Yep, or just some cursed object that contains a piece of the villain's soul. So, one of the great things about doing that is you can drive the MacGuffin into the midst of a battle or war, and then the player characters need to assemble it, destroy it, get it before others get it, or get it before it gets destroyed. A very common trope in as a MacGuffin is to the main characters know what it is, no one else does. So it's the idea of having something getting kicked around under people's feet while during a riot, and the main protagonist and antagonist are trying to find it while it gets kicked and thrown and lost in a under people's feet or a sewer, or someone gets ready to step on it and things like that. Yes, Gaster, I agree with you. I actually agree with you that isn't the affinity like aren't the Infinity Stones just really shiny MacGuffins? We just don't see Thanos collect it through the movies. Yes, the Infinity Stones are MacGuffins. We is a physical representation of the growing threat, and a war is a growing threat, right? And a pitched battle is a growing threat. So, for example, if the player characters are on Mars in a domed city and it's about to be overrun by automated defense systems, or a um, a habitat is spinning out of control and it's in zero G and the player characters are there and it was thrown into zero G because of a pitched battle and it's about to fall into the local star or sun or something, or anything like that. Maybe an AI system has taken over a habitat and it's starting to annihilate the people that are there, and they're all trying to scramble to get into escape hatches to leave the city as it's slowly being destroyed and eliminated. All those complications to get from one place to another, to get to the item, to get to the individual, to extract the MacGuffin is very much what what we're talking about. And I think in one of the great things we can use for when it comes to transhumanism, especially in altered carbon and in Eclipse phase, is we have ourselves mobile MacGuffin implants, which are cortical stacks. Literally, with every player character running around with a cortical stack in the back of their head, that little a spinal cord thumb drive, they're running around with a MacGuffin, because when a player character gets killed, and listen, we've already had videos um, about the good reason for you as a game master to kill your player characters in a transhumanist game, that you can put the player characters in a what would essentially be a suicide mission, a no end situation, a catch 22, where they must go into a place knowing that they're going to die, to have their cortical stacks left there, to have to be then retrieved, maybe even by themselves in a later mission or even in their own mission. So an example would be player characters must go into, let's go back to the riots happening in the asteroid, and the corporation is sending kill sats there with hyper kill weapons. The player characters must go into the hollowed out asteroid with the miners. They know they're not going to escape, but if they get to the proper information, maybe they can then beam that information out, knowing that it is a suicide mission, and maybe after the battle is done, they can later go back and retrieve their own cortical stack to um, then reconstitute their memories back together from the mission, which is pretty cool. Um, Yeah, I hear you, Gaster. Yeah, getting a little squirrely with the MacGuffin's idea, but he says, I remember making a student script that basically was a suspense drama movie about something called the MacGuffin, but it's actually a Chekhov's gun, just a little small comedic script writing gag some writers will get. Yep, Chekhov's gun is a is another trope. I'm gonna wait for our trope specialist to put that in. Chekhov's gun is another writing um, talent that you could use when it comes to role playing games. I think we could even do a whole movie of television tropes we can use for role playing games. I, that would be kind of a good way to back ourselves into a game. Yeah, yeah. Gaster says, Two Soul says the Chekhov's gun is basically an item that is presented and is used in the end. We often get to see a Chekhov's gun. Um, it's the foreshadowing effect, right? Um, Chekhov, master of the short story, gave this advice: if it's not essential, don't include it in the story. The term has come to mean an insignificant object that later turns out to be important. Uh, there's a picture in a tvtropes.org that says there's a rifle above the bar because the name of the place is the Winchester. Yeah. Um, for example, a character may find a mysterious necklace that turns out to be the power source to the Doomsday device, but at the time of finding the object, it does not seem important. The necklace was essential to the story, but its introduction downplayed its importance. Chekhov's advice was not necessarily to conceal importance, but to just not spend time on things that are not important. Um, Oftentimes, you will see things presented in a story where um, a a person who's showing a television or a movie episode will show you an individual in the background, an object on a bookcase, um, a television story that's some a news broadcast on a television in the background before our main character turns the television off. Maybe there is a there you'll see a character get ready for work and they're a police officer, and you'll see them grab their gun and then they grab their ID and their badge, and you see them either put those items on or take them off and hang them on the back of a chair or put them in a locker or something, and then they'll move on. Later on in the story, they get chased by a bad guy. Now you know where the gun is, right? Because they put it away or they hung it on the back of a chair or something, or they go to reach they put it into the next to the nightstand, and they put it in the drawer, and when they go to reach into it to get their gun because they heard a strange noise and the gun is missing, now we're like, but we saw them put the gun away, what the heck, Yeah, exactly. Zax 200, hey, so says, so my problem with that is if the players don't know it's important, why would they keep it? Well, that's the whole idea, right? They don't know. And that's it is a problem because we as creators, we know why the Chekhov's gun is there, right? Whether it really is a gun or not. Omen, you're strange. But you could introduce, it's the idea of introducing things into your story, and it doesn't need to be one thing. It could be an NPC. It could be the strange ramblings of a homeless person talking about um, a coming astrological event. It could be like you could drop a number of so-called unimportant events and comments and objects in the background, and then later on you turn the dial and turn them into something important, right? And that's usually how a lot of things start. Hey, the classic PC start in a tavern, right? And so since we're talking about science fiction, yes, in a science fiction world, you can talk about things that are happening on distant worlds that the player characters are not going to. An example would be in Star Wars, when Han Solo says in the very first Star Wars movie, he's like, yeah, I sure could use some cash because I owe a debt to someone. None of us knew how important that was. That was just that was an aside. That was oh, well, yeah, because he's a smuggler and he owes people because he's a gambler, or he lost some cargo or what, none of us thought that was important until it was. And so every player character has a backstory. When they come to the table, they're like, hey, I've got this backstory. I was an officer in the war. I'm a mercenary. I'm a part of a corporation and I left. I released an AI into the world. I'm a living embodiment of something that shouldn't exist, and blah, blah, blah. All those things are relatively unimportant to the main plot until the game master goes, you know what, I'm gonna take that and turn the volume up as high as possible, and I'm gonna make that thing the story, right? So yeah. You guys are silly. Plus one plungers. You guys are crazy. Destroying Cthulhu. Though, all right. The getting rid of the squirrel and getting back into it. The idea of having a sci-fi adventure where the player characters are in the midst of battle is the reason why I'm bringing it up is because we could use this to really, really ramp up the tension and the desire to get to that MacGuffin for the player characters. Like, we can get away from the MacGuffin part, but if the players are on a mission and you want to introduce, we've got these really thick books. We've got the PDFs and stuff. Maybe we want to throw some of those strange things in there. Maybe the player characters are on a space habitat that's designed around a Jurassic Park, and we want something bizarre to happen. And there's like battle and war and dinosaurs running around. And sure, the player characters aren't really there to visit the park. They're there for some other reason. But maybe they have to dodge around T-Rexes and um, automated defense systems and roving bands of space marines that are going after something. And it's also a great way to not. It's our way of designing the triangle. So you guys know my triangle is you have your player characters, your adversaries, you have your protagonists, you have your enemies or your antagonists, and then you have that third element. And that third element just very much could be this battle that's raging around. So maybe the roving bands of corporate mercenaries, they're not going after the player characters, they're going after something else. Now they could get in a battle with the player characters, but maybe when they find out, they're like, why are we wasting ammo on these people who are running around? I don't care that they got rail guns. They're not after us, we're not after them. Sorry about firing after you, but we need to move on because we're here to I don't know, get the black boxes off the habitat and get the hell out of there because they're their corporate interests. While the player characters have no interest in that, maybe they're there to get an important dignitary or at least get the cortical stack of the important dignitary, right? So you could have battles that are temporary. You could have battles that are escalating, where it's not smart for the player characters to stand there and have a pitched battle. It's much more important for them to run for it. If a habitat is starting to lose gravity, become irradiated, catching on fire, poisonous gases, of course, again, waves of radiation, uncontrolled nanotech, a factory spewing out um, robots or something. Like, there could be a number of things happening. Again, those kinetic kill weapons start aiming ever closer to the player characters as they start dropping more and more bombs onto the place. Yeah, staying still and killing things and taking away all its hit points might not be the smart thing, but getting to the MacGuffin usually is. And that's usually how stories are written, right? It's not, hey, let me just beat the ass of the bad guy. Sometimes it's, we need to fulfill the mission first and then beat ass, right? Gaster Two Soul says, um, uh, maybe the players are on a small planet, but a war breaks out on the planet, and they're trying to get the hell out of there before they get killed by railguns or poisonous objects. Yeah, things drop from the atmosphere. It could be maybe the planet's crust is unstable and earthquakes and things are happening. Maybe there are landing parties, big giant ships that are landing and disgorging lots of dangerous objects. Hi there, Andrews Martin. You're never late. You're always on time. It's the rest of us that are off. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it's not sure the player characters could stand there and get in a pitched battle with something dangerous. But the reason why I say in the midst of battle, you could create your own like randomized encounters or your own, like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a land fight, and then maybe I'm going to have something aerial, and then I'm going to have something in the deep reaches of space, and I'm going to insert mutated creatures or hackers, and um, inserting all of these elements in the background that the players may have to navigate around, and also putting everything in the hands of the player characters, right? Like, sure, a direct line between A and B might be the shortest distance, but it might also be the most dangerous. Or they could take the long way around, but then that just means the spacecraft they need to get to escape the planetary surface might then be destroyed or take off or inhabited by other refugees that are trying to escape, or the very enemies that they are trying to avoid might also be there. Or maybe innocents are trying to escape, and the player characters are thinking, my moral outlook tells me I shouldn't kick these people off of the starship. Maybe there's another way we can escape. Or maybe we can take the MacGuffin and use that as a bargaining chip to get off the planet, or whatever have you. Yeah. Yeah, Gaster Woods says an entire friggin' underwater city rises to the shores with an army of fishermen and an angry monster. Yeah, it could be like the allowing us to manipulate the environment, whether it is through like the weather or through the machinations of the plot to move the characters and keep them from having analysis paralysis, I think is a great tool we can use, and I think it operates perfectly in science fiction. So if the player characters know that an army is approaching, and even if that army just gorges from a giant nautilistic kraken that it extends its tentacles many kilometers long as they start climbing down. I don't know, maybe that's a little too large, but you get my point. This discourages an army. Maybe the player characters look up into the sky and see this mountainous nautiloid, and they're like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't stay here and try to beat ass. Maybe we should leave and get the hell out of here because we need to, I don't get the fifth piece of the rod of seven parts back to I don't know, our home plane of existence. The Nautilesque, yeah, the Tarrasque with a nautiloid like shell on the back of it. Hell's yes, hell's yes. So in many ways, as you guys brought up, ooh, Grivel says, speaking of nautiloids, Baldur's Gate 3 official full cinematic. Yeah, now bringing up Cthulhu, one of the aspects of, and this is just even people who are into horror, and bringing horror, even body horror and things like that, into science fiction. One of the tenets of a lot of horror is not about destroying the horror. I know I'm. It sounds like I feel like I'm mispronouncing it. Anyway, when it comes to the Lovecraftian and Cthulhu mythos, it's never about defeating Cthulhu. It's never about um, punching Yog Sothoth in the mouth or something. It's not even about winning. It's about, I don't need to run the fastest. I just need to be faster than you. So it is about surviving as long as possible to at least achieve neutrality, sending, um, beating the cultists in about the head and shoulders so that the gate closes before they summon Cthulhu. Yep. It is about achieving a temporary stance of beating evil back, at least temporarily, at least in our lifetime, if not defeating evil completely. Uh, yeah, like Gaster Two Soul says, you can't defeat the Elder God, right? Um, just a massive ass cuttlefish. Yeah. Oh. Anyway, it could be instead what the player characters might need to do is, of course, fulfill the mission as opposed to trying to fight the massive thing or massive army or growing threat, but instead achieve the mission. And in science fiction, we can use the same trait for horror, right? Maybe it's not about stopping the habitat from being destroyed or falling into the sun or being destroyed by kinetic kill weapons from orbit. It's about, you know, escaping off of the space elevator before it gets severed in half and falls down to the planet's surface. It could be um, escaping the lab before damn near all of the mutated creatures or xenomorphs escape from the lab and start escaping and breeding and such. The alien movies are a good example of that, where yes, you can defeat one alien. Maybe you can defeat two or three. Maybe if you set up a couple of railguns in a hallway, you might be able to destroy plenty of them. But listen, destroying all of them? No, you just need to get off the planet. The let's nuke it from orbit idea, right? And that might even be the mission, to escape from the midst of battle to activate the end game. you know, um, maybe that is the mission. And so all of the other things, again, MacGuffins being distractions, there's nothing wrong with that. There really is nothing wrong with that. When John Wick's puppy gets killed, yeah, all those people he starts to double tap in the head with his gun are in the way of the MacGuffin, which is to kill the kid that you know kicked the hell out of him and opened up a can of whoop ass on him, took his car, and killed his puppy. Right? It's going to be it's literally the plot of 4 movies, and so all the rest of that is just in the way of the MacGuffin, and we love it because of it. So there's nothing wrong with having that. Um, like Gaster says, bringing it back to what we were talking about earlier in the Discord, or maybe it's just about trying to keep the child in yellow, the son of the king in yellow, blissfully ignorant of his abilities. Yes, I just did a shameless plug of a story I'm making. Yep. Sometimes, again, sometimes it is protecting the MacGuffin, like to make sure that the powerful child with psychic abilities or a connection to a great evil, or th- the beacon that summons an alien invasion, comes there. Oh, that's all right, Omen. Yeah, I know it's evening, and Omen, you're always welcome to pop in and out. Yeah, no offense, not really trying to ignore you or anything like that, man. But it's always good to have you hanging around. I know Omen just had to go, but anyway, guys, I can't stay too late. But really, um, just making us don't think that you can't make a setting, even if it's just something small, like a small little habitat, or something large, like a whole planetary surface, that have an adventure where the mission is not just player characters, bad guys, but have it happen in the midst of a battle where, and even if the player characters are on the side of one battle and they're fighting another battle, that there are things that could be happening in and around them, whether it is they are avoiding a starship that is crashing towards the planet's surface, and the PCs are in their own spacecrafts or aerodynes or something, dodging out of the way of debris falling through the atmosphere, or they're in a major city and there's unexploded ordnance and debris that's falling through the city, and they're running through catwalks, and they have to they're using jetpacks flying around the city. And me, I'm a very visual person, and I'm just imagining the chaos of riots and soldiers and giant robots and alien invasions and AIs, and let's not forget nanotech and hackers and um, virtual realities and uh, oh man, AR systems, um, not just artificial reality, but overlays and augmented reality and all those kind of things. Let's just embrace all of that, or hell, let's just open up our sci-fi books and go, you know what? I've never done a fill in the blank, right? How about I just throw that in the background? Imagine if you will, Cthulhu stomping around in the background of your world, like a post-apocalyptic blasted landscape of empty cities and Mad Max with Cthulhu literally blotting out the sun, casting a shadow that extends miles and kilometers. But maybe the story isn't about Cthulhu at all. Maybe the story is about saving just a small band of innocents. Maybe the story, going back to Zach's 200, going back to Zach's 200, who makes the point of saying, one of the problems is if it's unimportant, maybe the player characters. Zach's 200 says, so my problem is with that is if the players don't know it's important, why would they keep it? And thereupon, this is where we get to turn up the volume, right? This is where, hey, PC, remember when you said that you um, lost contact with a small enclave that you were raised in? Guess what? That enclave needs to be saved because in the background, Cthulhu and a bunch of other Lovecraftian creatures are stomping around this blasted wasteland. And oh, by the way, you need to save them. Boom. Now we just took a small, somewhat background, insignificant detail turn that MacGuffin into something important. Well, we were talking about Chekhov's gun with that, which kind of blends together. Where, yeah, we brought it up before, but it's not a big deal. Now it becomes the thing. Maybe it becomes the we need to save my adopted parents or one of my siblings or something, or whatever the case may be, or I need to retrieve the cortical stack of myself that was deposited here many years ago because I lost that part of my memory, and we need to recover it. And maybe all of us, we need to recover our old cortical stacks because none of us remembers why it was that we were here in the first place. What were we doing and what killed us? Maybe we need to recover that information. And so that might be the mission while, I don't know, Cthulhu is crushing cities in the background. And that might be the thing where debris is falling from the sky and sound waves are passing through the environment that are driving people crazy. And uh, lobots are running around, lobotomized human beings that are like the equivalent of like zombies, but they have no minds left, and all they see is, it's like the Netflix movie Bird Box, where all they see is insanity, and their minds are driven crazy, and they're committing they're going after the PCs, trying to commit suicide in very strange and bizarre ways because of an alien psychic entity has descended onto the planet, and all of this might be happening in the background while the PCs are trying to go after the people they're trying to save and get the hell off the planet, or dive into a sealed chamber that would protect them from the coming of the end of World War III or something. Gasper says, I actually cried seeing the dog die. Don't judge me. I have a soft spot for animals. Oh, listen, we all know that, when you tell someone, for people who haven't seen the John Wick movie when it first came out, it was like, yeah, the man exacts revenge because they killed his dog. Everyone's like rolling their eyes. When you see the movie, you're like, yeah, he's pretty, it makes sense, right? I forgive you, John Wick. You have every right to double tap people in the brain the entire movie, right? So yeah, you are not just forgiven. It's like you're sitting there like, that's, and the reason why is because the puppy was an innocent. Out of the entire movie, the puppy pretty much was one of the only innocent individuals in the entire that entire genre of the Continental, if you think about it. So yeah, when an innocent dies, somebody's got to exact revenge, and the hell's yes. Everybody keeps asking me whether I'm back. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I have to get off to work. This show is broadcast 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not sure exactly what time it broadcasts for you guys. But yes, thank you very much. Oh, Dante, what's going on there, man? It's been a long time no here. Dante says, doing a whole campaign on a single battlefield would be kind of cool. Like World War I, trying to get across the field was into a long process. Yes, if anyone has ever seen the movie, I highly suggest seeing the movie 1917. A cinematic tour de force of two individuals who are literally given a MacGuffin to take very important documents to the front line. And all you do is just follow those two individuals from that are just in the background of World War I, and you follow them through the entire time of them going through a battlefield and just having a battlefield rage in and around them. And I think that's so cool. Everything from going through no man's land and trenches and um, uh, biplanes falling out of the sky and unexploded ordnance, like I mentioned before, and roving soldiers and uh, I don't know, bombs falling out of the sky and flares being thrown up and all that kind of business, right? Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. You're fine. Yeah, like Dante says, 1917 was dope. Got to go to work. Yeah, we all have to. So, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Not exactly sure if we're going to go on to the next character class after fighter. We may do that. We might go into something else that has come up, but whatever the case may be, you guys know Monday through Friday, 6 a.m., we get to sit around as if we're talking before or after a game, sit around a table. So please spread the word. Asking for a call to action. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your grandparents, tell your enemies about the show. And of course, you guys come in live and interact or check out the show later like a podcast. Anyway, you guys have a great one. Please check out Critical Hit Publishing on Drive Through RPG. Everybody have a great day. I will see thee later. See you later. Now, bye. Thanks.